All right, Dean, it's another installment of my favorite episodes. I don't know if these are your favorites, too.
Oh,
but
yes.
I quite love Tech Bytes.
I do.
I think they're a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
It's a nice reprieve from the usual, too, you know. I don't have to put on like an air of real professionality.
No, not at all.
With some, of our fantastic guests that might be like, who are these idiots?
Right.
Instead, it can just be us idiots talking and
yes.
just rambling about topics that
for the 21st time in our 5-year history.
21st time,
5 years, 5-year history, yeah.
More than 5 years. I think we're closing on 5.5.
Oh,
like,
geez. There you
think
go.
about all the time we've actually been working on this. Yeah.
But the impetus was this so we could give people something to talk about, right?
Yeah.
That we found interesting.
Sure. It has nothing to do with filling a weekend when we have nothing else
Zero
to
do with filling in a week.
And we can't get a guest.
When we have a cancellation of a guest or something like that.
Has nothing to
do with that. This is important stuff.
Exactly. Basically, these are just full-length versions of our What's on the Radar segments.
Yes.
Where we will riff about some interesting reads.
It requires a little bit more in-depth analysis is what I would like to say here.
Going a little tiny bit further.
There you go.
So this installment, can AI truly replace the workforce?
Ooh.
What are the top restaurant trends from last year? And even more importantly, have you experienced any of these?
Yes.
The wealthiest and happiest cities, and is there actually any crossover between the two? Why Americans are working less, and how to handle your digital life after death. So we can end on a happy note.
There we go. Yeah. And on an upswing. There you go.
That's right. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Welcome to BlueStar Nation. The BlueStar Nation podcast is brought to you by ELO. Boost back-of-house performance with ELO and Epson's True Order KDS. The flexible ELO iSeries with Linux touchscreen computer and Backpack Linux PC are now available with Epson's True Order KDS software, delivering an intuitive, out-of-the-box kitchen display system designed to enhance efficiency and streamline order management. I mean, that's pretty cool. Two of our
ELO
big
and
vendors,
Epson coming together.
Yeah, they're working together.
KDS.
So, like, how can we come together and make an even better solution?
Look out. Look out.
I like it. It's pretty awesome. Build a smarter, connected kitchen by utilizing ELO's interactive designs to unite front and back-of-house operations within a single unified hardware platform, including POS, self-service, and tableside ordering. With True Order KDS on ELO devices, restaurants gain a reliable, easy-to-use kitchen display system that seamlessly integrates into existing workflows. Order your ready-to-go KDS solution by contacting your BlueStar rep or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Dean, let's kick things off here. I'm going to let you start off with talking about an AI agent company. Maybe an answer to the question of, are we all going to get replaced by the AI?
Yes. Well, don't you feel like that? Like,
everyone seems to
we're just headlong down this
Which
AI
always
nirvana.
begs the question to me. He's like, okay, if you're replacing all the jobs with AI, what are we supposed to do?
What are we going to do?
How am I supposed to earn money?
Well, and
are you going to create some universal basic income that I can have?
If you couple it with robotics, it's like the AI is taking over all the smart work.
Right.
The robots are taking over all the manual labor.
Yeah.
Well, what the heck are we going to do?
Are we just going full Wall-E?
Full Wall-E?
Can I get my flying
I'm starting
chair?
to hear stories like, well, you just enjoy life. And what do you mean by that?
Don't get me wrong. That sounds fantastic, but I feel like we've built an entire world economy on us not enjoying life.
You give people a little bit of time on their hands. I don't know that we have a good track record of doing a lot of good.
There's a lot of retirees that would argue that not working has not been great for them. But
what's the phrase? Idle hands or something of the devil?
Idle hands are devil's work or something.
There
like that.
Tools of the devil or something. Yeah, anyway. All right, so the story here is professors staffed a fake company entirely of AI agents. So yes, for all of you out there that are hand-wringing and worrying, is AI going to take over my life, my world, my what work, I do? Yeah. Yes. The answer here apparently is no. If you've been worried about that, you can now breathe a sigh of relief because AI isn't coming to your career anytime soon. Not because it doesn't want to, but because it literally can't, is what they're saying here. So yes, so they built a fake company with AI agents, and lots of fun happened here. So these were researchers at Carnegie Mellon University. So that ain't nothing, right? These people, in theory, know what they're doing. They staffed a fake software company entirely of AI agents, and I thought that was pretty brilliant. Like, all right, so this is like white collar, right? AI,
a standard type of job.
And then they gave it a bunch of tasks to do. Well, apparently it didn't do so well. But the tasks were based on really kind of the day-to-day work of a real software development company. The various agents found themselves, doing stuff like navigating file directories or virtual tours of new office space or writing performance reviews for software engineers. Just the ho-hum of the daily life in a software development company.
That boring stuff that apparently we need to be replaced for.
Apparently so. So they tried many of the models that are out there, many of the LLMs and whatnot that are out there. Anthropic's Claude 3.5 did the best, and it still was not very good. It only finished 24% of the jobs that it was assigned. And when you then lump in how much it costs per step to get that done. Anthropic's Claude would average 30 steps to complete a task at a cost of $6 per task. And again, it only completed them 24% of the time. Yeah. So the net here is, well, I guess if you want to run a company on something that only gets 24% of the work done, then maybe AI is for you.
Maybe there's a manager out there that's like, that's still 5% better than what my people are doing. I mean,
there could be.
That probably says more about you and your management style and your business than it does about,
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Employees' capabilities.
So speculating on the results, researchers wrote that the agents are plagued with a couple things that I thought were pretty good. Number one, a lack of common sense. So I guess us humans are very good at common sense.
Mostly, yeah.
AI agents are not good at it. They don't understand our world. They don't have a whole lot of common sense. Right. Number two, they have weak social skills. This isn't good. And it manifests itself in a variety of ways. Like, for example, when one AI agent talking to another AI agent couldn't get the answer it was looking for, it would just hallucinate, make up a different kind of persona agent. Yes, exactly.
I thought that was my favorite part of this article. Is like, I can't find the answer by talking to existing people, so I'm gonna make a fake person that will give me the right answer. That's so amazing. I'm going to start doing that in my job. Exactly. Be like, Dean, I don't like the answer you gave me about this thing I want to do, so I'm going to create a fake VP of marketing.
There you go. That's right.
Named Bob, and he's going to give me the answer that I want. Thanks so much, Bob.
Task completed.
Task complete.
Yeah, so, that's a little bit of an issue. You can't just kind of go and start making stuff up. Yeah. And then finally, has a poor understanding of how to navigate the internet. Obviously where it needs to find information and stuff like that. So,
which is, again, hilarious given that we're training AI supposedly on the existing internet. So
yes. Yeah.
And it doesn't know where to go.
So this prompted Stephen Casper, who's an AI researcher who is part of the MIT team that developed the first public database of deployed agentic systems, says, quote, agents are ridiculously overhyped in their capabilities. So there you go. It's coming from MIT. And I guess we got a little bit of stuff to back it up here. Yep. And he claims the main reasons why they struggle with real world tasks is it's a challenge, quote, it's a challenge to train them to do so. Most of the state-of-the-art AI systems are decent chatbots because it's relatively easy to teach them to have a nice conversation, but it's hard to teach them to do everything a human employee can do. So there you go. Yeah. So it sounds like the path is it's got some pitfalls. It's got some rockiness there with AI agents specifically taking over all of our jobs. Yeah. So you can sleep a little bit better, at least for another year or two.
I think also, even if you're worried, there's going to be whole parts of my organization that get outsourced to AI and agents and chatbots and all that stuff. I feel like this Stephen still tells you that's probably not as likely to happen as you might think either. I could see we know there's places where automation can kick in and help out and do some things, but there's still going to be stuff where you just need good old-fashioned people doing making again those common sense decisions, practicing a little bit of social awareness. Yep. I think of this like the same way people complain all the time about, I hate when I call somewhere and I get the robo call that I'm talking to, trying to get something answered, and find yourself screaming answers at it because it didn't hear you right the first time, or at some point yelling, I want to talk to an agent, which that's going to be funny when it's like, I want to talk to an agent and it sends you to an AI agent.
Yeah. No, not that agent.
I meant a real live human being. So, I mean, no one likes working with this stuff as it is. So why did we ever think that that we were going to find, wholesale just turning over organizations.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen. But what they say, the likelihood of what is going to happen, like we're seeing in robotics and other things, is that these agentic AIs or these AI agents will assist people in their day-to-day activity. So if you could think of a mundane thing that you might do, maybe you're an accountant and you write a macro for a particular spreadsheet or something like that, a task that might take you 15 minutes to do. Well, maybe you have an AI agent that does it in 30 seconds or does it in a click,
and then you can do 5 times as many of those in a day.
It gives exactly. There
are
you
there
go.
tasks that you need to work on?
Yeah, but as far as a whole company working, a software development company, apparently that's not even close to being available at this point in time. So there you go. A little bit. Are you going to sleep a little bit easier now? Maybe just a little bit.
I was a little nervous when the whole LLM thing launched.
Sure.
And then it became clear, like, all right, it's still not as good as it could be. It's not, you guys haven't kicked me out yet, so I figure,
humans are still necessary.
Still somewhat valuable, but this is a nice reinforcement of the idea that no, we're not all. Despite some of the Silicon Valley heads out there screaming that if you work at a desk, you're done. I think we're okay for now.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk some food trends.
Yeah, let's get into some food then.
Last night we were at a little team dinner. We
were
reminiscing about the old days of the Bon Appetit.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know what that is, go to the BlueStar YouTube page. There's a playlist there. Of the old cooking show that Dean used to host.
Cooking show. Hey, I think you were on there once too.
I was.
Thank you very much.
I was on there for a lot of ads and for a while, but then I actually got to do a little co-hosting and whip something up.
Yep.
Well, all right. So Food and Wine put out their list. This has actually been from a few months back of the top 10 restaurant trends that defined eating out in 2024. So I'm looking through these, and I'll rattle off this top 10 list here. Number 1 was mountains of caviar. So lots of caviar being used in dishes. Number 2, a duck-a-sance. So dishes made with duck. Seafood trays at number 3. We've got Jimmy Nardello peppers at 4. Fish aging lockers. Counter service, so eating at a counter instead of waiting on a table. Grandma plates, as in literally the kind of plates your grandma used to serve you food on, with the kind of ancient Pyrex plates, or the cute little designs and stuff around them.
Right.
Martinis and fries. Mash up pastas. So basically using pasta as a delivery mechanism for more unique things than just standard Italian dishes. And the number 10, kakagori, which is a type of shaved ice treat from Japan, apparently.
Yes.
So my question to you, Dean, have you actually experienced or encountered any of these things on this list? Because I will tell you up front, I really have not.
Well, and I don't want to encounter some of these, but we'll get into those in just a second because I was horrified by some of them. I think I've come close to the seafood trays in that there are seafood towers.
True.
I'm blessed with having, we go to a lot of meals, and so we do a lot of traveling.
Right.
You go to steakhouses, and they have seafood towers sometimes.
But even that's not terribly new.
It's not. It's not. Well, the tower is definitely not.
No.
And so I don't know where they're going with this seafood tray, because when I look at the tray, it looks like a tower to me. It's got, you got some oysters on there, some shrimp, some crab, just a little bit of all that kind of good stuff.
I mean, it even says here that this is essentially the flip side of the ostentatious display of a towering multi-level seafood tower. And it's nothing new, but they said, but it's something that apparently is having a moment.
Yeah. Now, I can't believe you haven't experienced number 6, which is counter service, which, by the way, I am a huge fan of.
I'm aware that it exists. It's just not something that I can recall ever partaking of, I guess.
Well, so I had a weird experience this weekend. We went into a brunch place, what I would call, it was called Wild Eggs or something like that. And it was just a normal restaurant, but in the very back, it had counter service.
Okay.
Like, you just walk up to, it's like a bar. Well, it was a bar because they serve mimosas and stuff like that. But I would call that counter service. You could sit at the bar.
I guess I've probably done this at a sushi place once or twice. Not anytime recently. It's been a while. But
yes.
Because a lot of times you can go at a sushi place and essentially sit there right in front of the chef while they're making it.
Yes. There you go.
That's essentially counter service.
I think so. Now, none of the other 8 have I come close to, nor do I really want to, because some of these are horrifying. What is a fish locker? Like fish aging locker? No.
A locker full of fish suspended upside down and dramatically lit as if they're in the spotlight.
No. I don't want to eat at a place that has fish on, I don't know.
Apparently,
on
this is a
view
thing.
like
It's a
that.
dry aging thing. Again, they do mention this is something at sushi bars, which I guess I kind of get that. Although I'm not someone who enjoys raw fish as part of my sushi anyway. So, yeah, I don't know about that one.
And then I was a little bit horrified. Well, not horrified. I'm not into duck. So the duck-assance, I guess, if there is a renaissance of eating duck, I will not be partaking in that.
Yeah,
I'm just not a huge fan of that. The grandma plates I can see. That's kind of cool. I don't know. I've never been to a place like that, though. And then finally the kakigori.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce that? I really would love to try that.
Sounds like Kona Ice,
That one is the one out here that I might want to try.
Some very interesting flavors they were talking about there, like apple, roasted white chocolate, and burnt cinnamon.
Yes, right.
Like, okay.
Like you can do these exotic things
Yeah,
on
like
here.
I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't, again, I've not had duck recently. The last time I can think of having duck, and maybe one of the few times in my life, one of our Vartex that we went to, we had one of our dinners with the advanced crew or whatever somewhere, and there was some kind of duck dish that they served.
Going around.
I just remember it being very oily, having more than a few
Very
bones in it.
Oh man,
It was okay. I mean,
like
it
little
wasn't
fish bones, or are you talking
duck
like
bones.
Oh
yeah.
boy, yeah.
Like it wasn't bad, but it didn't blow my mind. It was not something I'd ever order again. But yeah, I don't know about this. Caviar, I'm not a big fan of caviar. Like I've had it a few times. It's fine, but nothing spectacular. I mean, look, again, this is Food and Wine magazine put this list out. These are folks that, their life is about going to the most exotic restaurants out there and trying all the things.
Okay, so I must be missing out on something. What is Jimmy Nardello peppers?
I don't know.
Who is this gentleman? Do we know?
It says Jimmy Nardello has his name dropped all over menus right now, often affectionately called Jimmy's, or better yet, Nards. Chefs across the country have been falling hard for Jimmy Nardello peppers, and it just says
he must be a famous chef.
Yeah, it just says they're super hot right now. It's just apparently a particular type of flavor, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So see, I'm feeling out of the loop now. I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't
who
either.
this guy. Oh no, it's just a sweet Italian frying pepper. That's what it is. It's not a dude. It's just a pepper.
Yeah,
okay.
It's just a pepper. So maybe Jimmy is the guy who found it or grew it for the first time. I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I guess we were at this dinner last night, and I was commenting on the fact that this classic restaurant that's been in the northern Kentucky area forever. I had never even been to. So clearly, I'm not the target audience for some of these trends.
Oh no, it gets worse than that because it was featured in one of the greatest films of the 90s? Rain
I
Man?
guess that was the 90s. Yeah, early 90s maybe, Rain Man.
Rain Man, the scene where he drops the toothpicks and counts it. Well, that was in this restaurant. It's called Pompilio's.
Yep.
And it's in Newport. And you had never been there.
I had never been there.
I
recommend it, though.
You're both a movie savant, and you love restaurants, and yet you've never been to the one restaurant that was featured in a movie here in Cincinnati.
I love space movies, but I haven't been to space either. So
I'm not seeing the connection.
I can't say that Rain Man's been like one of the highest on my list kind of movies, favorite movies.
That's fair. I think
I've seen it once, and that was probably 30 years ago.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, fair enough.
All
so
right,
let's get into some wealthy cities here.
Yes.
So there was a Henley and Partners, who I don't know who they are, but they came out with a report. That was also
this was on Condé Nast Traveler, yeah.
Yep, in coordination with New World Wealth. And what I found fascinating about this is it's just one of those. I don't know. It is a depressing article in some ways, but anyway, they use expert insights to calculate the total number of millionaires, centimillionaires.
So I guess that's tens of millionaires.
That's hundreds of millions. I'm sorry, hundreds of millions.
Okay, makes sense.
And then billionaires that live in each of the world's major metropolises. So you can click on it, you can see. And I'll just start off with the number one, which was New York City. And by the way, the U.S. has 4 out of the top 10 cities. 4 of them are in the U.S. But here are the numbers of how many millionaires, centimillionaires, and billionaires that live in New York City. Are you ready for this? Millionaires, 384,500. Are you kidding me right now? How are there 384,000 millionaires?
I mean, to be fair, to live in most of New York, you probably have to be one. At least a lot of chunks of it.
There are I'll come back to it. There are 818 centimillionaires. 800 people that are. I guess I'm. By the way, I couldn't find this. I think this is based on their net worth. Is what it has to be. I don't know. And then 66 billionaires that reside in New York City. So that's a lot, right? That's when I read how many millionaires there are, 384,000. It's like, oh my Lord, that's a lot of millionaires. The Bay Area, they're number 2, 342,000 millionaires, 756 centimillionaires, and 82 billionaires. It's like, wow.
Which they had the most billionaires, which makes sense. It's Silicon Valley, area.
Silicon Valley, yep. So, they also had the most growth in the last decade. So this is a measurement over the last 10 years, the most growth as well. So for me, it was just more of the jaw-dropping. There's how many millionaires in these cities again? I mean, you did have a couple in like Singapore that was up there. I think Singapore is like number 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
4, yeah.
Tokyo is 3.
Yep. The closest one to us, I guess, is Chicago. A mere 127,000 millionaires that live in the Chicagoland
and
area.
Only 25 billionaires.
And only 25 billionaires. It's unbelievable. I mean, I don't know. Do you see where my take was? Is just how many millionaires live in these cities, and it just feels a little bit disconnected from good old Cincinnati. Although I don't know how many millionaires. When you think about net worth, that's why I hope I'm right there. When you think about somebody's net worth, I mean, if you have generational people or like farmers and stuff like that, there's a lot of people that are quote unquote millionaires.
Right. That's true.
You've just the value of your land. If you're a farmer, you could easily be a millionaire.
I mean, is a millionaire just the new 6-figure person?
I guess so. Right? I mean, when you got that many of them running around, you got 400,000 millionaires in your city, in your densely populated city. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of them.
You just throw a stone and hit a millionaire, So.
I guess these are the people that are paying for these NBA tickets and the Super Bowl tickets and stuff like that. Anyway, that was my commentary. So you want to see if that matches up at all to the happiest cities in the world.
This is funny because you and I always just like collect our stories and send them to one another, and without any having seen or heard what the other person's going to do. Mm-hmm. So I also had a Condé Nast Traveler article that ranked the 30 happiest cities, and I was particularly intrigued to see all right, is there going to be some crossover? So here is the top 10 of the happiest cities in the world, starting at number 10 with Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Then you got Munich, Taipei, Stockholm, Seoul, Antwerp, Belgium, Aarhus, Denmark, Singapore. That was the only actual crossover between these two lists. Singapore is at number 3. Zurich and Copenhagen is the happiest city. If you're wondering, hey, where's the U.S. cities? Only 2 even made the top 30. New York at 17 and Minneapolis at 30. The rest are all international. A vast majority of them are in Europe, for that matter. And in a lot of Scandinavian countries, there's at least one more. There's 2 more Denmarks on the list. So that's 4 cities in Denmark that make the list. So basically, we always like to talk the methodology.
Yeah, what was the methodology here?
So they ranked them. They ranked 200 total cities based on 82 indicators across 6 broad categories, including governance, environment, economy, mobility, and citizens. They said, which includes indicators like education and access to cultural institutions. And they said the 6th category, which is new to the list in 2025, is around the theme of health, with indicators such as mental health, safety, nutrition, and work-life balance. So so apparently if you want to be happy, if you want to be rich, if you are rich, I take it back. Not if you want to be rich. You can't just move to New York and become rich. Yeah. Not just just for the sake of it, But if you are rich, there's plenty of cities here in the US to go to. If you want to be happy, you probably have to go overseas to.
Well, clearly. I mean, like when you're rattling them off, I'm like, they're all European countries.
Yep.
Was this sanctioned in Europe? Where is the?
Let me see. Let's see. It was a London-based organization, the Institute for the Quality of Life. Now, mind you, London's not there in the top 10. I don't know if.
Well, no, because London's not doing so well.
London's not even in the top 30 here either. No,
there's not a lot of good happening in London right now. But okay, so I'd like to riff on New York being 17. Yeah. Have you been to New York?
I've very briefly. I've flown through it a couple times, and
I don't know that I've ever
drove through once.
A person from New York, and I love New Yorkers, but I think they will even self-profess that they are not generally the happiest people in the world.
But Dean, hang on.
Yes.
As you just noted, there's 384.5 thousand millionaires 818 centimillionaires,
That's
66
fair.
billionaires.
There you go.
If even, I don't know, 10% of them filled out this survey, they're probably pretty damn happy.
I would say they're probably pretty damn happy. Yeah, that's fair.
Money has bought happiness here.
So what
apparently,
percentage of 8 million is that? So that is a significant percentage. Anyway, I was just going over the old stereotype of, a stereotypical New Yorker as being, aggressive, maybe not like bubbly, happy like the people
it's not a city
from
that gets associated, with. Like
the
Minneapolis,
Netherlands.
Like Minneapolis, I'm like, all right, it's a Midwestern kind of city.
Yeah.
It's a north, but north central Midwest type
They're happy,
attitude.
right? They're happy up there.
Yeah,
I
totally
good.
get that.
They got to deal with weather in the winter. Okay, but they're all happy.
Yeah, New York's not the kind of place that usually people think of as like, man, if I want to be happy, I'm going to New York.
I want to go someplace where there's just a bunch of happy people. Oh, let's go to New York City. I mean, I can't see myself ever saying that. I love New York City. Nothing against the people. There you go.
Backing up to the wealthiest cities, I was surprised that Dubai did not make the list.
No Dubai, no million, or at least not enough millionaires.
I guess it must be concentrated into like a small quantity of people.
I would think
much
so.
Smaller quantity compared to these other cities.
Plus, the government's involved in that too in some way. I don't know.
You might be right.
I mean, isn't it all like a couple families, the wealth?
Yeah,
these Arab nations are like a couple tribes and families. Type of thing. All right. So why are Americans working less?
I mean, is this a bad thing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a couple ways you could look at the survey.
This is one of those, I think, very interpretive type of surveys.
So it's a Gallup survey. I'll give you the numbers here in a second, but you could view this as either like people are getting soft. You could view it that we are back to where we were a couple decades ago, which the article makes that argument. You could view it that younger people are more disengaged and work less. That's what you could view. But the results are Gallup finds, the headline is, if you will, that the average hours worked have dropped progressively since 2019, when U.S. employees reported working an average of 44.1 hours a week. Now in 2024, they worked 42.9. So what is that, an hour and 0.3 less per week. So generally, people are working less, as we've talked about here.
Well, I think that's always an interesting caveat here too. Is when you have a headline, people are working less. Most people are going to assume like, oh, no one's getting their 40 hours anymore. Like, no, we're still all working over 40 hours, just not as many over 40 hours.
That's right. And it does get into burnout. It does quantify burnout pretty well, where it indicates that as your work hours increase up to 45 hours, and then when you go, it seems to be like a mark there at 45 hours or more per week, your burnout ratio starts going up fairly dramatically. It's like a little bit of a hockey stick when you look at the numbers. So if you're working 45 or less, I guess you're in the realm of where people are working. So anyway, several new findings may explain this shift. And, I don't know that it's a dramatic shift. 1 hour.
It's not.
Right? It's not. But they cite stuff like this. Overall employee well-being has been on the decline. Number 2, employees now have less trust in institutions in general and feel more detached from their employers. That's an interesting one. Mm-hmm. And that really cited the younger generation as being more detached from their employers. I don't know how to correct that, but
they said that work decline was much more pronounced in younger workers.
There you go.
35 too.
Yep. So anyway, after a decade of study, the employee engagement again reverted back to its 2014 levels, where you have, and I'm still surprised. I mean, I think it's something it's like 17-18% are totally disengaged, or I think is the phrase that they use. So you have 2 out of 10 employees that are completely, totally disengaged from work, and yet they're working. I don't know how that works, but okay.
It doesn't apparently.
Apparently not. Advances in technology may be making work more efficient. So Gallup finds that nearly half, or 45% of these employees, say that AI helps them with their improved productivity. However, a workforce that is becoming more technically efficient and less engaged may lack the motivation needed for long-term growth. So that's the whole technology play, right? Like, is all this AI and stuff like that, is that actually helping us, or is this a crack in the armor where it's leading to less engagement, therefore maybe less motivating for folks to want to go to work? I get it. And then finally, employees, especially younger ones, now have placed a higher priority, and we hear this all the time, on their overall well-being or the work-life balance. And I'm using air quotes around that as better overall well-being now ranking among the most important considerations. So anyway, like I said, I'll go back to, you can either view this as people just being soft. You can view it as,
I think you can tailor this to whatever you want this
I think you could
to mean in a way,
I think you could. So, we're working an hour less. Is that dramatic? Maybe not. But it's good to see the historical data. It was interesting to see some of the burnouts and, again, some of the disengagement. There are a couple good charts on this article. Go to the show notes and take a look at it. Because you can see, again, I'm surprised there are so many, what percentage of folks are disengaged on that. And so anyway, what were your thoughts? What's your overall? Is it people getting soft, or am I being too hard?
There was three things that kind of two things within the article, and then just my own personal opinion here. But I think the things that stood out to me the most is the most likely reasons behind this. If you're going to create a reason,
yes,
I think the efficiency aspect is actually part of it, and I think it's not even so much the AI of it. I think that's helpful right now, but I think this has been a trend for the last few years, brought on by the pandemic, frankly.
Right. And they didn't refer to that at all.
They didn't. No,
go ahead.
But so many workplaces had to change the way that their workers worked in order to accommodate them for the pandemic. Especially any office workers that then shifted to work from home. It probably meant that a lot of workplaces that weren't already using some types of automation or processes that could make things faster and easier to do when you weren't in the office able to do them is the kind of stuff that once introduced simply made work potentially faster and easier to do, and easier for people to potentially get done sooner and not have to work.
So you're saying they're still getting the same amount of work done in one less hour because of the efficiencies gained.
I mean, it could even, for all we know, they could even be getting more work done.
That's right.
Even though this doesn't tell you that, it's telling you how much less they're working. It doesn't necessarily give any kind of commentary on the actual productivity of what they're doing with that one less hour. They're not getting more done. So that's a big part of it. I think the work-life balance thing, I think, has become a part of it. I think, again, and that was spurred from the pandemic as well, just this idea that people just simply took a reevaluation of work and learned, hey, I like having a little bit more time back in my day, in my life, a little more time spent maybe with family or doing things I enjoy, and finding that happy place where that could happen made them realize, hey, I can still do my job and still get paid and still be very good at my job, and yet work a little bit less and enjoy some other things a little bit more. And I think that's the kind of thing that people have found they enjoy and don't see any particular reason not to switch back. And I think the last thing, this might be getting into this isn't part of the survey, but when I think about the younger generations that are dialing it back, I think a lot of them maybe are just, they grew up watching their parents work their butts off and put in all this ridiculous amounts of overtime and not necessarily be there for them enough or not really get as much out of it as they thought that they could have or should have. I saw mom and dad working ridiculously hard and they don't really have a lot to show for it. Maybe they don't have anything more to show for it than I have now. So why should I be working that much too? Again, this is me speculating. I don't know if that's really the case or not, but we tend to learn from and look at, what the people before us did.
Sure.
And evaluate, I've learned as a parent, for instance. You always look back on your parents like, well, I'm not going to do those things. They messed up there, so I'm going to get it right this time. And then, down the road, my kid then someday goes, well, my dad messed this up. My parents screwed that up, so I'm going to do this time. I think generations tend to have that attitude of here's what I saw my forebears do wrong that I'm going to fix differently. And this might be one of those things. They put way too much time and emphasis on work. I'm not going to do that in my life.
Could very well be. What's interesting about this particular article, though, there are some click-throughs if you want to get a little bit deeper.
As always, I love those kind of polls.
And Gallup, I think, is widely respected as being a fairly good at what they do. I did drill a little bit more on some of them. About half of U.S. employers, only half, actually about 45%, know what's expected of them at work. So, they're trying to give you some clues as to why they think, some of the expectations or why Americans are not just working less, but maybe feeling less motivated. And so when you look at a chart like that, back in 2014, Well, over 60% of people said they expected what they knew what it was expected of them at work. We're down to like 45% now. So that's a dramatic change. Connection between mission and purpose of their job. Like, how does my job relate to the mission and purpose of this company? Actually, right before COVID, it was at a pretty much of a high. It was close to 40%. Now it's down to like 30%. So there are, things like that I'm sure, or I'm hoping, HR departments are looking at and saying, hey, there might be some trend stuff here that's happening at a macro level. Like, people just don't understand what the mission is, and they don't know what's expected of them, right? Yep. Because that can add to your overall job satisfaction. Yeah. If you don't know what the mission is and what you're doing, well, then kind of, right? So anyway, fascinating stuff to drill into.
This might not be a place for it, but what am I doing here?
What are you doing here? Yeah,
you keep making me come here and sit in front of these cameras and talk. I'm not really
overall.
I'm not really sure what I'm doing. The last thing I'll say is I do think the burnout stuff is telling, and it is the kind of thing I think people should pay attention to. But I do also want my caveat there, and my kind of cautionary tale there is, for if you are a manager or an HR person and you're looking at this data, don't just look at it and say like, all right, I got to fix, I'm going to do X, Y, Z and make my employees do this or whatever. Go talk to them. And I'm not just saying like throw out an engagement survey and then riff on those results among your executives and come up with a plan there. Talk to people. Ask them like, why are you feeling this way? What could we be doing differently to help you out? And you're going to get some of the BS responses like, well, you could pay me more, like sure. But I think if you're willing to have a conversation with your employees and ask them what's happening and why they're feeling the way they're feeling and getting some genuine input, you might find that you actually find some better opportunities to figure out how to combat these issues.
Some of these trends. Yep. That's fair. All right, so now we got to prepare for death. So we've worked our whole life, and now we got to prepare for death.
Now that you're done living, let's talk about what happens when you die, and more importantly, what happens to your digital life?
I never. After death. I don't think people are thinking about this.
I don't know that they are either.
Rarely. So this is fascinating.
First of all, I'll tell you a little personal story because this, for the first time, popped into my mind a couple years ago when I had to have some surgery. Yes. And it was one of those things like now, mind you, I had never had surgery before. Right. I never had any kind of serious surgery, any kind of procedure like this. So it was one of those things you start pondering your mortality for a moment.
Yes, of course.
And the doctor, being a good doctor, told me.
I thought you were going to say he was being a smart ass.
Well, no, anyway. I mean, you could take it either way. But when I was doing the consult, basically said like, hey, I do want you to understand. I have to tell you there is like a 1% or a less than 1% chance of death from this procedure. And of course, in my mind, that was all I heard was I could die. This guy's like, so I've done hundreds of these operations, never had a problem, but there is a small percentage chance you could die, and I have to tell you that. Yes. Okay, doctor, I'm going to die.
So I need to prepare.
Right.
Where's the will?
So in my mind, I was thinking a little bit about that, and I this is going to sound nuts, but like as I went into the procedure, before I did, I drafted an email to my wife of some things that I needed that she should know how to do or take care of or access should I unfortunately pass away. Yes. And I basically just set it on a timer for 2 days later to send out if I didn't wake up.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
And then I woke up and got my phone out. I'm like, nope, cancel that. I totally told my wife about it. She's like, because I didn't tell her beforehand because I didn't want to panic her either. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe you were thinking about that kind of thing. I said, well I'm like,
pretty prudent.
I'm like, the bottom line was like, there's a lot of stuff that I take care of for us.
Exactly.
That I'm the only one who really has the access to. And if something were to happen to me.
Especially in the digital realm with passwords and stuff like that.
That's just it. Passwords, social media, photos, recurring payments, billing, credit cards, bank stuff. Yeah. If you and your spouse don't necessarily share or if you're a parent and you're a single parent or whatever and you've got children and they don't have access to all of that stuff, it is ridiculously difficult to manage that stuff when someone dies. It's difficult to get access to that.
I can't even imagine.
You have to jump through so many hoops. You got to get death certificates. You got to send it here, send it there. And while you're doing that, stuff could be going bad. Stuff could be like, I mean, think about how many recurring charges you have on your
credit card,
your credit card. Whether it's streaming subscriptions or just whatever you've got that are constantly being billed. And imagine then if something happened to you and your spouse or children or whatever could not get in there to stop that stuff.
Yeah. So
It's just going to keep going. Your credit,
racking up.
it's not like your credit card's going to be like, oh, we should probably turn this off. This guy doesn't seem like he's still alive. No, they don't care. That's still going to rack up, and at some point they're going to be like, hey, who's going to pay this bill?
Yeah.
So anyway, so what that means is there is people that are actually thinking about this. The University of Colorado at Boulder, a student-led clinic has been put together to help teach people how to basically create their digital will, their digital estate plan.
Yes, I love the genesis of this.
To figure out what to do after someone passes away.
Yep.
And again, they looked at the data. They saw how often this happens, how difficult it can be to manage stuff. Even something as simple as social media. There's this big decision of like, sunsetting someone's account, either deleting it or memorializing it in some way. I've seen it happen. I've known people that like their account is still kind of lingering out there like a weird ghost of sorts.
And for sure.
You'll see them pop up on your like, hey, you should be friends with this person.
Like,
I'm like, you're like, and I imagine it's got to be weird for their loved ones too.
100%. Yeah.
So this is a first of its kind clinic. It was an associate professor of information science and a researcher at CU Boulder that came up with this concept of basically helping folks out. They've got a website you can go to and kick it off by explaining a little bit about who you are and what kind of stuff you've got. They'll reach out. It's a free consultation. They'll reach out and talk to you about what you might need to do, help you set up some kind of a game plan, and make that part of your digital will. And I think the time frame we're living in, especially our generation, who's been much more embedded in technology, through a good chunk of our lives at this point, it's something we definitely have to start thinking about. Because again, like I said, it occurred to me like there's a lot of stuff that even my wife wouldn't be able to get into with any kind of ease should something happen to me. So we've talked about plans to make sure that's not an issue in the future.
I think this is a good news story.
I think
even though it talks about
it's a morbid concept,
life after death. What a fantastic idea. Kudos to these young folks out there because I think the biggest impact this has on is older adults, like older than you and me, because we have digital literacy. I mean, I don't, and everybody in my immediate family has digital literacy, but my mom, not so much. No. And I can't even imagine somebody living on their own and stuff like that. I mean, everything that you just talked about is relevant here. And so these students, it's literally a free service. They'll help guide you through, creating all those things and coming up with a plan. And then communicating that plan to loved ones and stuff like that. It's a really, really good idea because I know that technology is a lot of older folks get very anxious around it, right? And okay, they can do the traditional will, right? And that's going to handle money and or estate and property and all that old stuff. But this digital stuff, like, it's a Wild West kind of. It's Wild West. Yeah. And think about that, though, because, their Social Security number lives on or their credit cards are living on, and now they could be exposed, or the estate could be exposed to these types of things. It's like...
And I guarantee you there are cyber criminals out there that are preying on this kind of potential.
So it's called the Digital Legacy Clinic. Yep. What a great, fantastic idea. So again, kudos to these kids for doing that and offering it. It's no cost. By the way, it's no cost. No. It's a pro bono clinic.
Yeah. And the thing is, they found is like there is infrastructure out there for some of this stuff. Like I came across this. I happened to get a random email from Google a couple months ago saying like, "Hey, set up your legacy contact for your Google account or something like that." Okay. It was basically something where, if for some reason. You can set it up for any length of time you want. That if there's a certain length of time that you are simply completely inactive within your Google stuff and your Google profile and anything related to Google, you've not logged in, you've not done anything, not touched anything for a length of time, it basically is like, well, you were probably dead. Yeah. So then it will immediately send out. Well, you can either have it shutter it, or you can have it reach out to a legacy contact you have set up, a spouse, child, whatever, and say, hey, this person apparently is no longer, engaging. Active, they're no longer active. You are the next in line. Here's what you can now do to take over their. So I went in there and quickly set something about that up. I'm like, all right, I set this up for my wife. Yep. When my son's older, I'll add him into it as well. So that if something happens, then I know that I don't do a lot on Google, but at least I know that that's one thing that will be automated and will immediately help them get access to whatever they need to do there.
Yeah.
Good
Anyway,
stuff.
I thought it was good stuff.
Something to think about if you haven't already. It's something you should be thinking about.
There you go. And a good service.
Exactly. All right, we'll wrap up with what's on our radar here in a moment, which is basically just us doing another Tech Bite. Because why not?
Why not?
But first of all, what's happening around BlueStar Nation? Well, look, most of your solutions require fast, reliable connectivity.
That's true.
Often on the edge
Yes.
to deliver key results like data-driven analysis, capture every scan, input, transaction, touch, all this stuff done quickly as possible. You've been hearing us talking a lot about this stuff lately. But if you're not really sure about it, if you're not quite sure if you want to be involved in networking and connectivity.
Right? Like, what is this whole thing?
You should. You probably shouldn't be leaving it to other providers. Believe it or not, that could be hurting your business as well.
You got that
So
right.
why should it be part of your portfolio? Why should you be working with us on networking connectivity? How do we help deliver vetted solutions and expertise to you and your customers? Well, we got some answers for you. Jim Hilton, our fantastic director of networking and connectivity, and our in-house team of networking experts will be answering all of these questions in an upcoming webinar, explaining our commitment to providing field-ready solutions with an expanding base of networking hardware and service providers. We've got some great folks on our team, but more importantly, the team itself is just dynamite. We've got some people that are veterans in this industry, really know their networking stuff, have been doing this for a very long time, and are ready to give that expertise over to you. So Dean and I are going to be hosting this webinar. It's called How to Utilize BlueStar's Networking Experts. We're going to do this on January. I don't know, we'll get rid of this year any faster than I have to. July 22nd.
Yes, coming up.
And we'll be releasing it as a podcast episode in the feed a little bit later. But if you want to participate live and have the opportunity to ask our experts actual questions live on the show, check out, there's a link in our show notes to save your slot and register for that webinar.
We love live events.
We do. It's fun. Yeah. We haven't done one in a while.
Yep. This is a good opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. While you're doing that, take a moment to like and subscribe to our show. If you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do that. We're posting lots of great fun stuff beyond just this podcast there. Drop us a comment, leave a like, leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. Check out the BlueStar Nation catalog. Send your ideas into us. We want to know what you want to hear about the show. If you have a Tech Bite topic, something you're like, hey, I think you guys should, I'd like to hear you guys talk about this. Here's a cool list you should riff on. I'm a sucker for lists. You send me a list.
Well documented.
And I'm like, yep, I'm in.
Yeah.
Here goes the next half hour of my life reading this list. That's where my word productivity goes right there.
That's right.
Someone sends me a list or I get a list. I'm like, yep, that's it. I'm done for a while. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Find us on BlueStar's LinkedIn page or email us anytime, nation@bluestarinc.com. All right, Dean, let's wrap up a little What's on Your Radar, a.k.a. the next Tech Bite. So what's on your radar right now?
Have you heard of the World Humanoid Robot Games?
I have not.
There you go.
But I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so, it's on my radar. Anything that's robotics, me. I'm going to be hovering on it, clicking on it. So where I came to, have you seen the humanoid robots playing a 3-on-3 game of soccer yet?
I have not.
Completely autonomously. Okay, so apparently there was a competition, again, of 3-on-3 robots, humanoid robots, playing soccer, and this is the lead up to the World Humanoid Games. And if you watch that video, and we'll put it in the show notes, what's unique about this is it's completely AI driven, meaning they give the robots a set of game rules, I guess,
right,
and that's it. These robots are navigating the entire sequence of events themselves, and it is very fascinating to watch because they're really good at moving the ball a little bit, and then it's very awkward. Right. You see stumbles. There's some laughable moments where they're running into each other and just toppling over. 2 of them had to be carried off on stretchers because they just got so flummoxed that they couldn't do it anymore. But, all that is a lead up to these world...
Do any of them flop? Do any of them pretend they were knocked down, flop, oh, I've been hurt.
Yes, exactly.
Foul.
Not there yet.
No, not there.
Not there yet. But that got me down the path of these World Humanoid Games. I didn't know they were going on, but apparently in mid-August, it's going to have 10 competitions, including gymnastics and track. So, this is like a culmination. Just a couple months ago, I think, was leaked the video of the, again, this is all happening in China, where the humanoids ran a marathon. and they ran it, I think, in like 2 hours and something. I don't know. It was a pretty good.
Did they break
not
the
a bad
human
time?
Yeah.
No, they didn't break the human time, but it was a pretty good time. Now you got them playing soccer. Now they're going to have these humanoid robotic games. I don't know, man. It just seems like we're getting closer and closer to having humanoids. And in fact, when you look at the statistics, China's robotics market is projected to reach 108 billion by 2028, and by 2050 it's expected to have 302 million humanoid robots in use. Let me give you that to you again. So in 25 years, 302 million humanoid robots in use, outpacing the U.S. We're projected to only have a mere 77 million humanoid robots in use in 25 years. So there you go. There's the bold claim. So 25 years from now, because I'm sure we'll still be doing this podcast.
Well, yeah.
We'll have to go back and say, well, are there
ripping out of my cold dead hands?
Are there 77
my digital
million
legacy hands?
humanoids still out there? I don't know. Humanoids, here they come.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Two things made me think of. One, that reminded me of, there was a classic Nintendo game, original Nintendo game called Base Wars.
Yes.
Which was a baseball game with robots where you're just playing as robots. Some were like humanoid, some would be like half humanoid, half tank.
Okay.
And, so they're playing baseball.
Yes.
They're like, when they would, rather than throw the ball, they would like shoot the ball out of a cannon on their arm or something.
Yep.
And for some reason, they decided to add like a hockey element to it where like if it was a close play at a base, the robots would fight to determine like whether it was an out or they were safe or not.
I like it.
So you would have to suddenly get into a fight with another robot. And if your robot had more stamina, you'd win. I don't know. That reminded me of that because then that also made me think, is the next step here that we just start pitting the robots against one another?
I think so.
But not even just the humanoids, but like does like the Boston Dynamics dog come running in or whatever?
Why not? Yes. It's like the ultimate BattleBots. Did you ever watch? I used to love BattleBots. Yes. I was geeking on those for years. But I think it's like true. BattleBots to the nth degree.
You're right. I promise you, there is a next gen BattleBot reboot.
Absolutely.
That will be some of these like humanoid robots.
So humanoid versus what? Maybe the dog, the Boston Robotics dog. Leave the instruments of doom out. Like I don't know, because even BattleBots was getting into flames.
Yeah,
like you could torch your enemies.
Buzzsaws and stuff. Yeah. That's a good point.
I don't know. Yeah. So maybe we will. So anyway, what's on your radar?
All right. Well, because again, I'm a sucker for a list.
You are.
So this is actually something that probably would have been in the main Tech Bytes feed, but I came across it after I'd already put our cue sheet together.
All right. Lay it on me. Yeah. What we got?
Well, in celebration of the recent 50th anniversary of Jaws.
Okay.
One of my all-time favorite films.
Yes.
Esquire did a ranking of all 35 of Steven Spielberg's movies.
Oh, I see. He's done 35 movies.
35 films, yes.
All right.
And they not going to run through the whole list.
And they're not ranked. Obviously, nothing easy like box office revenue.
No, it's pure, just like
subjective.
Subjective, good versus bad.
All right.
Now, I'll take the very bottom of the list is 1941. One of the few of his films I have not seen. And
wait. The comedy?
Yes.
Dude, that is not the worst film that is such a funny movie.
Again, I haven't seen it, but that
funny.
Usually is what I always hear as being so-called worst. I will say, I was looking through this list. I'm a huge Steven Spielberg fan. I always have been. He's probably my favorite director, at least of overall, just list of films that he's made. I love so many of his movies.
Can I make a guess at what's number one, and then you can go through just to see if I'm right? E.T.
No.
Okay. Oh, damn.
But there was only 6 of his 35 that I have not seen, and 4 of those were the last 4 on the list. So I didn't feel too bad.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Right.
Apparently 4 of the worst ones.
All right.
So let's get into the top 10 because that's always I feel like is a good place.
That's right.
A good place to start. Hang on, let me scroll through it real quick here.
You have to watch 1941. You have to.
I mean, my goal is to see all of his films at some point anyway. I'm surprised there's any that I haven't seen
just to watch Jim Belushi. I mean, you have to see it.
I like the music from it because, well, of course, in my mind, you can't have Spielberg without John Williams, even though there was plenty of films that he's done without him. But he's done the vast majority of Spielberg's movies.
Yes.
And I've listened to, the soundtracks of so many of them, even ones I haven't seen. And 1941 is a fun soundtrack. All right.
Okay.
At number 10,
yes,
the highest ranking one that I have not seen, The Fabelmans, which is almost like a biopic of
Never
sorts.
heard of
like
it.
Fictionalized version of his own life story, essentially, from a film from a few years back, from 2022.
Okay.
But probably the one on of these top 10 that most people may not have seen. Number 9, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Amazing that you can have a third film of a franchise and still be as exceptionally good as that movie actually is. Number 8, Catch Me If You Can. It's one of my wife's favorite movies. I do love that film.
Yeah.
It's a great, fun film. It's one of those movies I think the more you watch it, the more you love it and appreciate it. E.T. the Extraterrestrial comes in number 7.
7?
I was kind of surprised. It felt a little low.
Moly. Wasn't
I will
that
say,
like his seminal movie?
Well,
though?
yeah, it was like his. It wasn't his biggest. Well, I guess at the time it was his biggest blockbuster. Yes.
Sprung
he
him.
was one of those guys that, like, I mean, was always resetting first of all, he defined a blockbuster with Jaws, essentially.
See. All right,
and it was always resetting himself in his next movie and topping himself.
E.T. 7, got it.
So E.T.'s at 7. I will say, having watched E.T. recently a few times, my son.
Oh, it's not nearly as good, I'm sure.
It's not that it's no. I still think it's an amazing film, but it's also a very light film. Like there's not a lot to it.
No.
It's a fast pace.
Yeah,
you get start to finish pretty quickly.
It
still rips your soul out every time, but it's it's a fast paced movie. There's not a lot of depth and nuance to it, but it's still a great.
Well, that was my comment on Twister last night when we were at dinner.
That's true. Number 6, Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, great movie.
Which is a classic.
I actually might have put that as
with reviews.
Number 1. But
number
anyway.
5, Schindler's List. Also
good movie.
an exceptional film, a heartbreaker. Hard to watch that one, though.
Very hard.
Number 4, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I do still hold up as... It's one that,
I might have to rewatch
if you
that.
haven't rewatched
I'm not putting
it in a
that
while,
above E.T., though. But go ahead.
I will agree with you there. I'm not sure that I would either, but it is a fantastic movie. It is an exceptional film.
I've seen it once.
I do feel like
ago.
it was the film that really transitioned him from... This guy's doing some interesting stuff, too. This guy is doing something... really special, and then he went on this run for like a good 6 years there, where he was doing everything amazing.
That's fair. Okay.
Again, apparently 1941 being the exception to that, because that fell somewhere in that realm too. At number 3, Jaws, which I still
great movie,
start to finish, a nearly perfect film.
Yep.
Number 2, I was surprised this is this high on this list, but you cannot deny how amazing and groundbreaking this movie is. Jurassic Park.
Oh, I forgot that he was.
That's not what I would probably put in my personal top 10 Spielberg films.
Okay.
I take that back. It would probably make the top 10.
It's got to be in the top 10.
Maybe not top 5.
Yeah.
But it is such an amazing, especially because as we're recording this, the new Jurassic World's coming out this weekend. And we're recording this a little before 4th of July.
Yep.
And those movies have gotten to be kind of lame over time, and every time I go back and watch the original Jurassic Park, I'm still, even for as far beyond as we are now, almost 30 years past.
Yeah, right.
I still find that movie breathtaking.
It's great.
It was still just such an amazing feat.
It's a good story. It keeps you. It has aged well, if you ask me. Yeah.
And I still think the best thing he ever did was like leaning into as much animatronics as possible without getting into too much of the CGI, because that still holds up.
Now, but in subsequent movies, they keep reusing certain bits.
Yes,
like the dinosaur snugging up to the car.
Yeah.
It's like we got to move.
I mean,
on.
Don't get me wrong. I still see them every time. I'm a sucker for it. You know, I mean, I was a dinosaur kid, so
that was number 2.
That was number 2.
Right.
Number 1,
yes, sir.
And I will not argue with this one, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay, there you go.
Which is one of my absolute favorite films of all time.
Yes.
It is also a movie that every time I watch it, I still go, I can't believe how good this movie is.
Yeah.
The music is amazing. All the set pieces, all the action sequences.
Yep.
Harrison Ford is the best Harrison Ford has been or ever will be in that movie.
Yep.
It is again, I think Jaws is a perfect film.
Yep.
Somehow Raiders of the Lost Ark is an even more perfect film.
But just look at that top 10 list. I mean, that is stellar.
Seriously. Those are some,
stellar.
Not just some of the highest grossing movies of all time, but just literally some of the just most fun, enjoyable movies that I promise you, most people would pick at least one of those top 10 movies as being one of their favorites of all time.
Does anybody come close to that, do you think? Any other filmmaker?
You could argue for like a Scorsese for having,
The Godfather,
but not the kind of mass appeal, though.
Man.
I think there's a lot of directors that have an amazing filmography, but very few have the kind of mass appeal.
That's what I'm saying.
Of just films that so many people can get behind. And I mean, you go down further down this list and you're still going to find a good dozen movies that you're like, oh my God, that movie's fantastic. Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. That one's great. I mean, you get into some of his like historical Minority Report, we always talk about that comes in at number 13 on the list. You get stuff like Munich, which is, even some of his more recent stuff like Bridge of Spies and The Post that are a little more subdued and, not necessarily as for the masses stuff, but are still, exceptional exceptionally well done movies. AI, War of the Worlds, which I think is better than a lot of people give that one credit for.
No, that was a great movie. Yeah. So, yeah.
Just good stuff. Anyway, man. Great list.
Yeah, that is a good list. I'm going to go back to 1941, by the way. You have to watch it. The cast includes John Belushi,
right.
Dan Aykroyd, Slim Pickens, Ned Beatty. I mean, you got to see it. You got Christopher Lee. I mean, it's got a ton of good people.
All right.
It's a thin movie, but it's like it's just like a stupid, funny movie.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the fact that there are 5 Spielberg films I have not seen is a little depressing. Or 6, I think it was, that I have not seen was a little distressing to me. But they were also the ones that I was least. There was maybe 2 of them that was like, I kind of wish I had seen those, but the rest of them I was less interested in than others.
Yeah.
So, all right,
fair enough.
There we go.
Good list.
One more list to end your day on. That does wrap it up for us. Again, please send in your Tech Bytes to us. I'd love to
send them in
to riff on some stuff that you guys are interested in us talking about. We had somebody on our team send us one a couple months back.
That's right.
I think.
Send them in.
Paul Hickman sent one to us. Yeah, we love that kind of stuff. Send them over to us. While you're doing that, go out, watch some Spielberg movies. Trust me, you will find yourself reappreciating more of them than you realize. And please reach out and tell us also, are you happy or are you rich? Because apparently you can't be both unless you're in Singapore.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You can only be one or the other. And
that's true.
I think we also need to go talk to our friends in the EU and talk about, why are you guys so happy?
Why are they so happy over there?
They're probably going to be like, because we're not in America.
Yeah, right.
That's why we're happy over here.
Hey, easy.
All right, folks, that is what's doing it for us today. That's what's on our radar. Join us next time. Nation.